The crash came at 3:15 in the morning, and Sarah Wickham's hand shot across the bed before her eyes even opened. Harold was already moving, his fingers closing around the rope that hung beside their bed in the February darkness. One pull, and he was upright despite the vertebrae that ground together like broken glass every time he moved. His boots hit the floor. Another crash from downstairs, and Emma's scream cut through the wind howling against the farmhouse walls. Harold was at the bedroom door in 4 seconds flat. The rope had just bought them time they could not afford to lose. Emma was convulsing when he reached her room. The water pitcher lay shattered across the floor, and her small body jerked against the quilts while her eyes rolled back white. Sarah came through the door with the kerosene lamp already lit, her hands steady from 20 years of farm emergencies that taught you to move first and panic later. Harold scooped Emma into his arms while Sarah stripped the bed. The child's skin burned like she had been lying against a stove. They had maybe an hour before the fever cooked her brain beyond saving, and the nearest doctor lived 12 miles away over roads buried in 2 feet of fresh snow. Harold carried Emma downstairs while Sarah woke their son, Robert. The boy was 13, and he knew what was coming before his mother said the words. He was already pulling on his boots when she told him to run to the Henderson place a mile east. The Hendersons had a telephone, one of 8 families on the party line that connected their section of Pierce County, Nebraska, to the rest of civilization. Robert went out the kitchen door into a whiteout that would have killed him if he had hesitated or doubted the route he had walked 1,000 times in daylight. He made it to the Henderson farm in 18 minutes, got them to ring through to Doc Morrison, and made it back home in 22 minutes total. His father timed it by the kitchen clock, while Emma thrashed in a bathtub of lukewarm water that Sarah kept refreshing from the hand pump. Doc Morrison arrived 2 hours later, driving a Model A Ford that barely cleared the drifts. He examined Emma and told Harold and Sarah what they already knew. Another 30 minutes and they would have lost her. The scarlet fever came on fast and brutal, but they had caught it early enough that sulfur drugs and careful nursing could pull her through. Emma survived. She would graduate from Teachers College 16 years later and marry an implement dealer from Kearney, and never know how close she came to dying at age 7 because her father kept a rope by the bed. That rope was 15 feet of half-inch manila hemp tied to an iron hook screwed into the oak ceiling beam. Harold had installed it in 1936 after watching his father use one his entire life. The loop at the bottom hung exactly chest-high when you were lying in bed. You grabbed it with both hands and pulled yourself upright using your arms instead of your damaged back or arthritic knees or whatever other injury farm work had left you with. The physics were simple. Lying flat to standing normally took 30 seconds and a whole lot of pain when your body was broken, in the specific ways that farming broke bodies. With the rope you went from horizontal to vertical in 3 seconds. On a farm where emergencies came without warning in the middle of the night, those 27 seconds could mean your child lived or died. The rope served other purposes that made just as much sense once you understood what farm life meant before rural electrification reached the back counties. True darkness was something modern people never experienced. The kind of darkness where you could hold your hand 2 inches from your face and see absolutely nothing. Before the REA lines came through Pierce County in 1943, every night was that dark. The rope became a lifeline in the most literal sense. You could follow it hand over hand from the bed to the door without stumbling over furniture, or braining yourself on the wardrobe corner, or kicking over the chamber pot. It gave you orientation in 3-dimensional space when your eyes provided 0 useful information. Martha Johnson, 3 farms north, could not have managed without her rope. Rheumatoid arthritis had twisted her hands into claws by the time she turned 47. She could not push herself upright anymore, but she could hook her forearms through the rope loop and haul herself vertical through pure determination and upper body strength. The rope gave her independence. She could get up to use the chamber pot at 2 in the morning without waking her husband. She retained dignity in a life that offered precious little of it to women whose bodies broke down from hard labor before they reached 50. The Carlsons over by Willow Creek ran their rope through a pulley system that held a kerosene lantern. One pull brought the lantern down to lighting height where you could reach the wick safely. Another pull raised it back to the ceiling, where it lit the whole room instead of just a small circle. Carl Carlson had watched his aunt burn to death when her nightgown caught fire from a bedside candle back in 21. He designed his pulley system 1 week later and used it every night for the next 40 years. The lantern stayed safely out of reach, but came down instantly when needed. Frank Kowalski, who farmed the section adjacent to the Wickhams, had 5 children under age 10 and a 2-story farmhouse with a staircase steep enough to break your neck if you missed a step in the dark. He rigged a bell system to his bedroom rope that ran through pulleys to every room in the house. One pull rang the bell loud enough to wake everyone simultaneously. He installed it the week after their barn caught fire, and he had to run to each bedroom individually, while smoke filled the staircase and seconds burned away. The new system meant everyone got the alarm at once, and they could all head straight to the exterior staircase he built on the south side, specifically for emergencies. That exterior staircase saved the Kowalski family on April 19, 1947, when the tornado came through at 11:30 at night. The warning was the freight train roar that people always described, but nobody quite believed until they heard it themselves. Frank grabbed his rope and pulled the bell. Every person in that house was moving toward the exterior stairs within 5 seconds. They made it to the storm cellar with barely enough time to get the doors closed before the funnel passed within a quarter mile. The pressure change made their ears pop. Debris hammered the cellar doors like artillery fire. When they emerged 20 minutes later, the barn was gone, but the house still stood. The Johnson place 3 miles east was not as lucky. The tornado hit them dead center and reduced the entire farmhouse to kindling scattered across a wheat field. Henry and Martha Johnson survived because they had a storm cellar and because Martha could grab their bedroom rope and pull herself upright despite hands that barely functioned anymore. Their youngest son survived because they had practiced the drill enough times that everyone moved on reflex when the moment came. The Mitchells 2 farms south did not have a rope. Ed Mitchell was 63 with a bad hip, and it took him almost a minute to get out of bed when the tornado warning came. His wife made it to the cellar. Ed did not. They found his body 100 yards from where the house had stood. The rope saw different use during childbirths, back when babies came at home with a midwife if you were lucky, and your wife's mother if you were not. A rope hung from a ceiling beam gave a laboring woman something to grip and pull against while she worked with gravity, instead of fighting it flat on her back. Sarah had used Harold's rope during Emma's birth and Robert's birth and the 2 babies that came between them, who did not survive. She gripped that rope with both hands and planted her feet and pulled and pushed until the children came. The rope had been there for every fundamental moment that defined their family. The practice was common enough that Sears Roebuck carried bedroom ropes in their spring catalog. The 1938 edition featured a brass-fitted model with manila construction and leather-wrapped grip for $2.39. The product description called it essential bedroom safety equipment for modern farm families, which was catalog language for saying people actually needed this and bought it regularly. Montgomery Ward offered a competing version. When major retailers carried standardized products, it meant the market was real and substantial. County extension agents included rope systems in their safety publications. A bulletin from the Nebraska Extension Service in 1941 devoted an entire section to bedroom emergency equipment. It recommended keeping a rope, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and emergency telephone numbers all within arm's reach of the bed. The rope section specified proper knot tying, appropriate diameter for different body weights, and correct mounting height for maximum mechanical advantage. This was not folk wisdom. This was practical engineering guidance from educated professionals who understood what farm families actually faced. The Dust Bowl years gave the rope yet another purpose. When the dusters came through at night, they brought darkness so absolute that suspended soil blocked every bit of light. You could not see anything. People died because they got disoriented in their own homes, panicked in the blackness, had no fixed reference point to guide them. The rope told you which way was up, which direction led to the door, where safety was in relation to where you started. Simple orientation saved lives when the sky turned to dirt. During the war years, when every able young man went overseas, farms ran on wives, children, elderly parents, and injured veterans deemed unfit for combat. A 58-year-old man with a steel plate in his leg from the First World War could still run his farm if he had the right adaptations. The rope got him out of bed each morning, despite an injury that never healed properly. It allowed him to keep farming, keep producing, keep feeding a nation at war. These were not small contributions. These were the unglamorous adaptations that kept the agricultural system functioning when half the workforce had vanished. Harold's rope was actually his father's rope before him, which was his grandfather's rope before that. The original section came from rigging line off a Great Lakes freighter in 1889. By the time Harold inherited it, the manila fibers were stiff with age and multiple applications of linseed oil, but it still held a man's weight without complaint. A $3 investment that lasted 3 generations. It never needed batteries or electricity. It never broke down or required replacement parts. It worked equally well in summer heat and winter cold. It asked nothing except occasional inspection for fraying and a drop of oil on the mounting hardware. Harold kept his rope until 1961, when rural electrification had been standard for almost 2 decades. By then they had electric lights controlled by switches on both sides of the room and a telephone on the nightstand. Sarah finally convinced him to take it down during a bedroom renovation. He coiled it up and stored it in the machine shed, where it hung next to other equipment that functioned perfectly well, but had been replaced by more modern solutions. But on that February night in 1948, when Emma's fever spiked to 104 and every second counted, that rope was exactly where it needed to be. Harold's hand found it in the darkness. He pulled himself upright in one smooth motion. He was moving toward his daughter, while precious seconds remained to save her life. The rope did exactly what 60 years of practical farm wisdom had designed it to do. It gave a father the few extra seconds he needed to reach his child in time. Emma recovered fully from the scarlet fever. The sulfur drugs and Doc Morrison's care and 2 weeks of careful nursing brought her through. She never knew about the rope that helped save her life that night. Most children never knew. The rope was just there, hanging beside their parents' bed, waiting for emergencies that might never come but sometimes did. It was preparation made physical. It was wisdom you could touch. It was the difference between having enough time and running out of seconds when seconds were all that mattered. Thank you for watching this video about a small piece of forgotten farm wisdom that helped families survive during challenging times. If you found this story valuable, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and share this with others who appreciate authentic agricultural history. This video is inspired by real facts and events from American farming history and is not intended to represent or offend anyone. Harold Wickham is a representative character who reflects the real experiences of hundreds of American farmers who faced similar situations during this era, using the same practical solutions to overcome the same challenges that defined rural life before modern conveniences became standard.